Welcome to episode 65 of In Touch with iOS, a podcast that talks about iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch, Apple TV, and related technologies, plus tips, apps, and gear. I'm your host, Dave Ginsburg, and this week's guest is David Chartier from the Finder Tech website. How are you doing, David?
Doing really good, Dave. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I've been wanting to have you come on the show for quite a long time. I'm so glad we were able to get caught up here and get you on the show this week. We have lots of great topics I've got lined up for us this week, including I'm going to be giving my first impressions of the Apple Card, which I talked about last week. I don't know, you'll have some maybe have some thoughts on that as well. Also, as I always do with new guests, I always have you tell us what iOS tech you have in your bag. So that's always as my one thing I do anytime a new person comes on the show, and as well as we're going to talk about all kinds of other things, including a story I have about my iPad and me losing it, but there's a happy ending to it, as well as some other new stuff that has just come out, and we're going to be talking about as well. So with that, we can just dig right into the news. I have I've got a couple of news stories that caught my eye. On 9 to 5 Mac, there was a story that Spotify is reportedly in talks with Apple to integrate to Siri for playback control in iOS 13. Found that to be interesting because I know Apple and Spotify have always been kind of at odds with each other with their music services. But it looks like the plan is, they say quote unquote plan, is that they're going to allow Siri to play songs, playlists, and albums with voice commands instead of having to do it third party or doing it with shortcuts, of course. What do you think of that?
This is really interesting to me because the way they're doing it is by using that Siri Kit framework that Apple's released. Yeah, so do you think it might be useful to sort of like briefly cover what that is and why it's important?
Yeah, go for it.
So Siri Kit, the reason why a lot of apps now work with Siri is because Apple built this sort of framework or this bridge for them to do so. Yeah. And so they've been rolling it out in typical Apple fashion. They rolled it out initially for like a certain handful of types of apps, like task managers and I think like ride sharing apps, because it's hard to build this stuff and they want to, try and do it right. So the first year they rolled this out, I want to say it was iOS 11, the first batch of apps, and then they rolled out another set last year, and now they have a third set this year. And one of the types of apps in that set finally is going to be media apps like Spotify and podcast players and things like that.
That's great.
So it's a platform. Apple builds platforms, right? So they're building this support. They're saying, yes, this year media apps can do this. So I'm a little confused on why Spotify and Apple have to like work together or make an agreement or something.
Yeah. Well, again, I don't know if this is rumor or not, but it says reportedly. So, but if 9 to 5 Mac is reporting on it, it's pretty solid report from them.
And I wonder if it could just be Spotify trying to get out ahead of the news and build some hype for that, because of course they've been making some noise over the last year or so about how. Yeah. Making the argument that it's a little anti-competitive, that only iTunes can do things like work with the HomePod and Siri. So I can see a little bit of their frustration, but the platform is finally going to allow for this stuff. So it sounds like it should be coming pretty soon when iOS 13 ships.
Yeah. So, well, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Spotify. And stay tuned, I guess, when iOS 13 and iPadOS comes out. We'll see what happens when that happens. So, next story I had was there's new Apple Maps that were released out to the northeast U.S. And Apple is promising to complete its U.S. rollout of new map data by the end of this year, with other countries to follow in 2020. Apple did announce about a year ago they were going to make a huge change to Apple Maps. It really needed it because there's a lot of updates and new features. And there are going to be a bunch of new features in iOS 13. But rather than going through and having to come up with all this stuff, they're just going to start rolling out the data as it goes here with all the different states and all that stuff. What did you think about this?
This is really interesting, and I'm glad Apple has stuck with this project, because early on when I was working in tech news and covering this type of thing a little more closely, I learned a little bit about the way Maps data works. Okay. And back then there were only like 2 or 3 companies in the world that were trying to build actual global sets of map data. Because just the resources and the time and the money needed to do that is unimaginable. And so if I remember right, at the time it was like Google and then like maybe Garmin or
TomTom maybe,
or TomTom. Yeah, like there's a whole bunch of names that you might associate with mapping technology, like Garmin and all those others, but a whole bunch of them were basically just leasing each other's data. Like there really were only a couple of companies that were making this stuff, and because of the complexity of it. And so I was actually a little worried for a while that Apple might just, throw in the towel and like just stick with third-party data, which,
that would have been,
as we've all seen, it's had mixed results in Apple Maps. So I'm really happy to see this. I hope they can keep rolling it out to the rest of the world, because I feel like Apple Maps is kind of slowly recovering its reputation.
I think
do you get that sense at all?
Yeah, I do. Okay. And also, come on, they got to pay for all those vans that were driving around doing all the map data. So because I saw plenty of those around our area. So, but yeah, I think it's starting to come. It's coming back. I don't even think people even remember when when Tim Cook had an open letter saying, we really messed up and the maps need to get better. I think people pretty much have forgotten that, because gosh, that's got to be at least 4 or 5 years ago at this point, I think.
That's also something that's a little difficult for Apple to keep a secret, considering, like you mentioned, they have to drive vans around with, Apple written on the side. So
they can't be private. So, So next article I found, this is on Lifehacker actually. This was these dummy iOS Lightning cables let hackers remotely access your devices, and I want to emphasize the word dummy. Don't buy crappy cables. Buy Apple certified cables, please. And that's really what this really comes down to. People buying those $2 cables you see at the local drugstore on the side counter before you're checking out, and you plug these cables in, and lo and behold, these are cables that can put some viruses and cause problems with your device, and then you connect it to your PC or your Mac, and then you cause more problems. What do you think about this?
And this can probably become its own show, because it's there's a lot of advice going around about stuff like this. Like Amazon counterfeit products are becoming a problem on Amazon.
Yeah,
these third-party stores will set up and say, yeah, we're really certified Apple cables, we super duper promise, but then it's junk like this, and being in public spaces, like I hear a lot of advice going around from security people and hardware people, like don't plug into those USB device slots for charging your phone in like coffee shops and stuff. Like, it's really convenient and it's nice that they're showing up, but you don't really have a way of knowing what's on the other end of those things.
Yeah. So
even like if the store owners, they might have no idea what somebody plugged into that. Kind of like those credit card scammers on a gas station. Exactly. Like if you're not looking for it, you easily won't see it's there.
Well, and if you read a little further in this article, it's they're called O.MG cables, and they were being circulated at the recent DEF CON hacker convention. How convenient! I would keep all my devices locked up and far away from, if I was even going to spend any time in that convention. And he said, it says that they're on otherwise normal looking cables, lightning cables, but they're modded for extra hardware, so you can give hackers remote access to your PC and your iOS devices when they're plugged in.
Yep.
What a concept! Again. The story says, dummy, don't buy crappy cables. Buy Apple authenticated certified ones, please. I think that's a good enough of a public service announcement, don't you think?
So when we say Apple certified, would you consider like third party, known companies like Logitech Cables or Belkin or whoever?
Anchor. Companies like that.
Anchor.
They have the certified. They're allowed to use the certified icon. These companies are not allowed to use that. And I know they may anyway, but it's definitely possible that they could slip it through. I agree with you. But all else fails, go to apple.com, buy the real ones. That's the
safest option for sure.
The safest option. You know what? You're paying a couple extra bucks, but you're safe. Then the last story we had here, and this actually came out today. This was AT&T and T-Mobile will now verify phone calls between their networks. It's called a call verification feature is based on the Shake and Stir framework, and I wasn't even familiar with this protocol. And I guess the FCC has been championing this for a while now, and this is going to be a way of being able to filter out even more of these robocalls. And my gosh, I mean, I've been getting T-Mobile. I mean, I'm a T-Mobile customer, very happy T-Mobile customer, as most of the listeners know. I've talked about that many times. That I got called them up. I said, hey, I want all these calls blocked. But what can you guys do? And so they put a block in place, and I hadn't gotten anything at all. It was beautiful. All of a sudden, in the last week, these 800 number calls were slipping through, and they're saying my social security my social security number has been suspended, and I'm not going to get any benefits at all. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And as soon as the numbers come up, I was like, I don't want to bother. I mean, the last time they left a voicemail, or the robocall left a voicemail. But this is a great thing to hear that they're teaming up. At least AT&T and T-Mobile, one of the two bigger carriers out there. T-Mobile Sprint will be one as soon as we know. So I definitely think this is going to help with the robocall problem. 48 billion robocalls last year. That's just insanity, absolute insanity. Why we even have to put up with this?
It's a serious problem, especially since it works a lot like your email address. If a company gets breached or someone sells their newsletter list, and all of a sudden, boom, your piece of contact information is out there, and it's up for the highest and lowest bidders. And
exactly.
I'm at the point where I just don't answer phone calls anymore.
Yeah.
If I don't recognize the number, they can leave a voicemail.
Sure.
And I'm getting easily, I could look at my phone right now, but I'm getting easily anywhere from like 5 to 15 spam calls a day.
Jeez.
Easily. Where I just I double hit the button and just cancel it. And that's something I'm excited about in iOS 13, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But companies and governments are finally starting to do something about this, right? Apple has that call screening feature coming, where if they're not in your contacts, it doesn't even ring anymore. Yep. And I've seen legislation getting proposed to really crack down on this stuff and raise the penalties for robocalling and spamming. So they're finally taking notice and doing something about it.
Absolutely. So that was in Engadget. So we'll have all the links to the articles we just talked about in the show notes. And with that, let's move on to our topics of the day. And like I said, that anybody who is a first-time guest on my show, I always like to ask them what iOS tech do you have? And so I'm kind of have a feeling you have a few devices that are in your arsenal when it comes to iOS. Why don't you share with the audience what devices make you tick?
Yeah, so I'm one of those odd people who does a lot of my work on the iPad these days. My type of work, helping, I mostly help indie app developers with content strategy these days. Nice. Documentation, blogs, social media strategy. Mm-hmm. And so I work on most of the time on a 12-inch 3rd gen iPad Pro. Nice. So the current one that's out right now. Yeah. And I have the iPhone XS Max.
Just like me.
And those are kind of my daily drivers, my go-to devices. I have the Pencil. Mm-hmm. Do you cover accessories, extra
absolutely.
Stuff that we usually use?
Apple TV, anything at Apple. Well, we don't talk about Mac, but you can mention Mac, but.
So yeah, we definitely have an Apple TV. I've got a 4th gen Apple Watch, or Series 4, excuse me. And I mentioned the Apple Pencil. Stuff that I use with my devices. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite accessories is a set of smartphone camera lenses from Moment.
Oh yeah,
have we talked about that at all on the show?
No, actually, as everybody knows, I'm a president of the Apple User Group local here in Chicago, and one of our members had brought it into when I did my last special interest group, and those things are amazing, and I've heard lots of great things about it. So you have those? Go ahead, tell us about that.
Yeah. I've got a couple. So I have their wide-angle lens and one of their more recent releases called the anamorphic lens. Okay. And that one is designed to get you basically that cinematic HDR look with lens flares. So it does great. I haven't used it a ton because it's a situational lens like most of them are.
Right.
But
right.
you can see videos on their YouTube or on their website, and of course they'll show off how these lenses work. And the anamorphic lens is meant to get you just that really rich, like color popping video that's super wide. I think it's like 16 by 10 or 16 by 9, something like that.
That's crazy.
You know, and it'll really make like any kind of like a street light or store sign like really pop, and you can get some of those lens flares. It's a really unique look, and I definitely want to play with it more. But the wide angle lens I love.
Okay.
And if you can get your hands on them, like as you've seen, like it's a heavy chunk of glass. Like you could hurt somebody with one of those things. So they're pretty serious. Their lenses run, I think, around about $100, give or take the lens that you're looking for.
Think about what you
but
pay
they're
for
a
the
really
glass.
nice piece of glass.
You know, think about the glass you pay for if you have a Nikon or a Canon. So
yeah,
I mean,
exactly, yeah.
And the cameras just keep getting better and better with these iPhones. And the iPhone XS Max is, oh my God, it's got the best camera ever. And the only thing is, you do have to have a special case for that, right? To have those lenses mount.
Yeah, so it's a blessing and a curse. So the way their system works is you put on a case, and that case has like special little mounting grooves for their lenses around, you know, the camera lenses on your phone. So you need to slap on a case, and I usually don't use a case, but I keep it handy in my backpack. It's not too hard to put on. But the advantage of this is the case is it's a typical like $20, $30 piece of rubber. When a new phone comes out, you don't have to change out all your lenses. You just buy the new case from them because they redesigned the mounts or whatever to fit Apple's, new camera setup on there. So you can keep your lenses between phone generations, and you just drop $20 or $30 for a new case, and you just keep shooting.
There you go. So that's all you got? You got to have more stuff. I'm just kidding.
Oh, let's see. Well, yeah. It's funny like when I don't have my backpack here. You
got to remember you pull stuff out of the back. Oh yeah, I have that.
Yeah,
I have that, and I have that. We're going to be talking about actually a couple new accessories and a little bit later. A new hub that some of our friends at OWC just came out with, and then Apple's adapter. I'm going to talk about and I want to hear your thoughts on this in a few minutes. So. But if anything else stands out, you're just iPhone, iPad, Apple TV. You're loaded. Watch. You're like me. You got everything. Do you have a Mac still as well?
Yes. Do still have a Mac. And now that I think about it, I did just get a notice that's a new kind of iPad keyboard case that I backed. Kind of like cleared today, and it's going to start shipping this month. And I'm trying to look up the name of it.
Yeah. If you remember, go ahead and throw it in the show notes. And We'll put a link out there to everybody. There's so many cool keyboards. Yeah, there hasn't been a lot of good ones lately for iPad.
I have Apple's keyboard folio for the iPad, and I like it well enough. They're all they all have their pros and cons, and I'm not thrilled about like the limited angles of Apple's keyboard, but I really do like how light it is. It doesn't make my iPad feel like as heavy as a giant laptop.
It is big.
I also kind of appreciate that the keyboard is basically waterproof, essentially. I kind of appreciate that. Yep. Not that I get into a lot of trouble with, liquids around my keyboards, but, it doesn't hurt. So the keyboard that I backed is called the Touch Type Pro.
Okay.
And it was something on Kickstarter, and the concept of it is the setup is by itself. You can set the iPad to a few different lengths, but when you fold it out, it has a place for Apple's actual Magic Keyboard.
Okay.
So you can use their official keyboard, or just set the keyboard aside, and now you've just got like a keyboard iPad stand, at a few different angles. So I wanted to check that out. I'm always in search of the best, another good keyboard. So
I've bought a couple things on Kickstarter before, so mostly Mac stuff. But there's always great things to find, and they never hurts, and sometimes comes to life, and sometimes it doesn't. But it's a chance you take. But there's a lot of good things on Kickstarter. So I got the iPhone XS Max, as I said to you as well, and I have my iPad is the 11-inch iPad. So I was hesitant to get the larger one. I just got back my first gen 12.9-inch iPad Pro that I'm using for beta testing, because my sister-in-law, I sold it to her after I had I sold it to her a number of years ago, and because I was crazy and I had two iPads. So but I said to her, hey, let me get this back so then I can do some beta testing because I sure don't want to put it on my daily driver. So I've been running.
Oh, that's a good move.
Been really awesome to be able to run beta. So we'll talk about iOS 13 and iPadOS here in a bit. So to do that. So speaking of iPad, I have an interesting story that happened to me last week. You and I both live in the Chicagoland area, so I was at Arlington Park Racetrack, and it was for a birthday party for my mother-in-law, and hanging out and having a fun time. And of course, the iPad is a great tool to have to be able to look at the programs, and also I make the bets on there too because I have an account. So, sure. So I had a great day, and it was a long day, so I decided to go down, and we had a nightcap and set at some tables, and then all of a sudden I realized later on that night I got up and forgot to grab the iPad with my backpack because it was sitting on the ground at the track. Like, oh boy, my $1,000 iPad.
So you left it in your backpack?
It was in your
backpack at the track?
I had one of those, those Amazon backpacks that you can crumble up into a ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the backpack I had. So it wasn't like one of those substantial backpacks. So later on that night, I realized it. I get in. I say, okay, what am I going to do here? Okay, find my iPad. There's the idea. So I go in to find my iPad and launch the app, and sure enough, it comes up. It says offline. So I'm panicking at this point. I'm going to bring up my iPad again just to remember what I did. So I tap the iPad, and then there's a couple modes in Find My iPhone, I Find My iPad. I think it's going to be called Find My in iOS 13.
It's odd.
And you can what you can do is you can do it put it in lost mode, and you can have it notify you when it becomes available, and you also can put it in there, notify me, and then you put your name in there and your mobile number in there, and that's what I did. And then all of a sudden it came to life after I did that, and within 2 minutes I got a call from the security desk at Arlington Park. They said, "Yeah, we got your iPad here." Because it was beeping like crazy at them because it makes those really loud sonar tones. So I said, yeah, I think I'm going to come over right now and come grab it because I don't want to wait. Because the next day was the Arlington Million, which was one of the big races of the day. And I knew it was going to be crazy busy there, so I didn't want to even deal with that. So went there, got it, and voila, my luck in my day was fulfilled. I won a few races, and then I got my iPad back. So, moral of the story is Find My iPhone is your friend.
Yeah, and that's my favorite kind of lost iPad story is when you actually get it back.
So very happy, and like I said, just why I wanted to bring that up, and like I said, make sure you have Find My iPhone, Find My iPad, and your watch too. Your watch will be turned on as well, and you can find your watch, even your AirPods. I mean, the AirPods don't work as well with it, but all the rest of your devices, especially the most expensive ones, have them all enabled because you'll never regret it later. Then the next story I had was this was part two from last week's show with Adam Christensen. We talked about that I had just got approved for the Apple Card, and I don't know if you applied for this or not, David.
I did. I just got it a couple days ago too.
Oh, you did? Okay, great. Then we can really talk about this. Awesome. So what happened was I put in both my Gmail account, which is the account I only use for my apps, my App Store apps and payments and all that stuff, and then I have my iCloud email that my iPhone is signed into to do backups, and then of course my wallet and everything is on that account. So what I did was I got the email from my Gmail account, and then dummy me not realizing this, I applied for it, and of course got it, and I looked at myself, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I can't do this on my iPhone because it's signed into the other account. So I do this on the iPad, my iPad beta on there. So you can apply to it through there, just going to the wallet in the settings. So it approved, but there's no way I could do anything with it because I can't sign into my iPhone unless I want all my backups and all my stuff gone. So that was all a long story I talked about last week, and on the phone with Apple. I was on the phone with Goldman Sachs. I was through chat. I said, no, I just give up. Just close the account. And then when I get an email for my other one, I'll just go ahead and apply for it and be done with it. So then what happened was a couple days ago, I went into the wallet again just tried again, push plus, and sure enough, it came right up, and there was the same limit, the same everything, and now I got the account that I needed and wanted. Meanwhile, they had already sent the card.
Oh, good.
From the other account. So now I have a souvenir. I now have 2 cards. One I could play with and throw around. And in fact, I just put something on Facebook. I just recorded a 5-second. I dropped it. It's metal, and it just dings. Because this, I don't know if you got your card yet or not, but
I haven't gotten the physical card yet. But this makes me wonder. When you have a credit card that you're done with, you close it out, or you replace it because you need an updated one with a later expiration date. Yeah. You usually you can cut them in half or tear them up or shred them or whatever.
Not this one. I wouldn't dare put this in my shredder.
Yeah, how are people going to do that with these?
Exactly. I mean, after I dropped it, I'm like, because they're made of titanium. I was like, holy cow, this is metal. I don't care, but the best part about the Apple card is there's no account number on it. There's no, it's got the chip and the stripe, but the account's closed. So as soon as someone attempts to use it, it's going to be denied. So
interesting.
Yeah. So I've got that card.
The card. So I see in the wallet app that it has an expiration date because all credit card payment systems still need one of those. I wonder if the physical version just doesn't expire.
I think it's linked.
Because it's sort of meant to be a backup.
It's linked to it. It is linked to it. So then, I'm not sure. They may be able just to program the card so, whatever the account is set at. That's a good question. I didn't even think of that. Yeah. So, because it's, the card's not going to expire until 2024. So it'd be interesting to know if, once it expires, is that card still going to be good or are they going to send you a new one? That's an interesting question. I'm perplexed.
Now I want to know, can the phone and the card kind of talk to each other? Because you're right, maybe the app can just update, the circuitry in there or whatever, and you just keep that card once 2024 comes around and you quote unquote renew your card. Maybe it just updates the physical version.
Yeah, you would think. So right now I'm in the wallet app, and I'm sure yours says the same thing. Your card has shipped and should arrive soon. And then what's going to end up happening is once the card comes in, and of course I've got the sneak peek already because I got the other one. It's in this beautiful folio, and that was in a plain wrapper that was sent by FedEx, by the way. And you open, of course, the beautiful Apple logo on the front. You flip it up, and then the card is sitting in this nice little slot, which is really nice. And then all you have to do is you tap activate card, which will show up on the wallet app. Then it's got an RFID inside that cardboard that the card is in there. You just hover right over it. Boom. The card's activated. Then you take it out. Ready to rock. So what I did was I made a purchase from OWC, which we're going to talk about in a minute. And of course they don't have Apple Pay as of yet. So what I did was I go into the account. I got the account number and entered that information into, as a credit card to use as a purchasing credit card, and you got the 3-digit code and the expiration date, all that, and worked like a champ. It was great. And then today they already have you can make a payment. I wanted to try that today, so then what I did was I just tapped for payment and it paid it. And you actually can have it set so if you want the Apple Cash card, have money in that on that card, you can tell it to just take the cash from there, if you so choose, or you've got a bank account linked to it. So, but I was really pleased how the process works so far, and I think it's going to be a cool card. Is it something you're going to make probably much on? And probably not. Kind of cool that the daily cash gets paid to you every day. Every time you charge something, the next day you're going to get the cash back on it. You don't have to wait for it.
Yeah.
But 3% is only on certain items. If you're going to restaurants, you get 2%. But Other World Computing was only 1%. So I won't get much on that. But of course, when you shop at Apple and other places that do have 3%, you'll get a good thing. So again, it's not for everybody, and there's been lots of videos and people reviewing it and all that fun stuff. And I don't think it's going to be anything crazy. It's just another credit card, but it's a cool credit card because it's in your wallet and it's built in Apple Pay.
I think at the end of the day, one of the really nice aspects about it is a lot of those little details that exactly. Apple is often known for. And the experience is just fantastic. And I don't just mean the unboxing part, but the wallet app is very clear. Sure. It's very easy to look at your transactions.
Yep.
You can see how much of your payment is going to go to interest. They're changing, I think, a lot about banking.
They really are.
And how banking works. It's easy. You can just contact customer support and chat with them right within the wallet app. They're not hiding from you. Yeah, basically. Like some banks maybe said to do. So it's those little things that I think help a lot and are pretty attractive. And of course, the daily cash, like you mentioned, that I think that may be pretty powerful for more people than we think. Getting that money back right away.
It's awesome.
That's that could be pretty powerful.
I think it will be.
So I'm curious. I've made a couple transactions on it. I haven't made any payments yet.
Yep.
But and just putting simple like budgeting and like transaction visualization tools in people's hands. Have you used many banking apps? For like consumer bank apps?
I mean, I use Chase. I use Citibank. I've used a couple of those, Ally. But they don't have a lot of tools. I mean, are you talking about something like Mint or something like that, or specific?
I've been with a number of banks moving from Denver to Chicago, and they're terrible. They're, in my opinion, they're just awful. No, and the only bank that I've found that offers any kind of like transaction review, budgeting analysis, any kind of stuff is PNC, our current bank.
Okay.
And the tools are okay. They're not, I would say they're not even on the quality of Mint, and definitely not on like Apple's design quality. And so just putting those kinds of tools in everybody's hands, I think is really powerful.
No, I agree. So no, I think it's going to be a game changer. It is really going to be. These banks really have to start stepping it up and saying, hey, we gotta get this more advanced than really what it is. I mean, they've got great things with their apps and the mobile apps and Quick Pay and all this other stuff, but I think this is going to put them on their toes, because a lot of these banks don't. I mean, I have a credit union. I think the credit unions have the worst of all of them. That's why I try not to do any business with credit unions, because they're not technology savvy at all. But I mean, the big banks I mentioned, like Citibank and Chase, they're staying up there. Bank of America, they all have some pretty good apps that are out there. But I think this actually with Apple is good too.
Actually, I'm going to offer one more example, because I know we want to move on. But we have an account with Bank of America, and I'm going to push back on you a little bit there, because Bank of America's app will not allow me to put in a payment method to pay a credit card that we have there.
Really?
I have to go to a desktop computer and open a browser and visit their website and do it there.
Well, that's crazy.
That, to me, as a person who, I live on the App Store. App Store's been out for like over a decade now, right? It's a thing. That was really frustrating to me.
No, I hear you. I mean, like I said, I just threw up Bank of America out there. I agree. Of all the three I just mentioned, they're the worst, hands down, as far as the functionality of their app. So, but yeah, that's the Apple Card story. I think people, if you haven't jumped out there and got it yet, put your name in. Invitations are still flying out. Hopefully they'll open it up to everybody soon. But definitely go to Apple's website, and you can put your name in to be notified. So let's move on. We're going to talk a little bit about iOS 13, and I had thought pre-show you have had it on your device. I do, of course, as I mentioned earlier, on my iPad. What were your thoughts so far? You said you had a few thoughts of where iOS 13 is so far.
I've had some time to play with it. I actually, usually by this time, I would have it on my device. I've been running the betas, especially since they started doing public betas those last few years. But when I saw the initial response from people about how it's a little bumpy this year, and I think it kind of makes sense, because there's a lot of big changes. This is one of those big change years. They're not just polishing a few things up.
And I said it was.
And so, and so I held back a little bit. I'm still waiting. It sounds like the latest ones that came out, was it last week? I think.
Oh yeah, it's a
beta 6 and public beta 5.
Yeah, but the developers have beta 6 now.
Okay. Yep. It sounds like that one overall is like a pretty smooth ride, but they pulled a couple of big features from it, like shared iCloud folders and one other one that I don't remember. So, and that happens. I mean, that's why it's a beta. They they need time to make some more changes, polish up the code. That's what the beta process is for. So I'm not entirely too worried about that, but overall, from what I've played with and what is there, I'm really excited. I'm really glad that they split out iPadOS.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
It's still, of course, it's still the same foundation. I mean, it's still iOS, underneath there, but this is it's a stake in the ground, saying that we're going to take this more seriously. They're obviously pushing the iPad much farther and doing a lot of things that people have been asking for. Mm-hmm. I've seen a lot more heads turning like, oh, you can do that with files now? You can plug in USB drives? Finally. Mm-hmm. Lots of those little like quality of life core workflow needs that people have. So that to me is really exciting. Yeah. And I've been kind of itching to at least try it on my iPad, but I'm not as smart as you, and I don't have a separate beta testing device.
Well, I got lucky this time.
But yeah, I like these big, ambitious changes because Apple usually does a pretty good job of buttoning things up and making a solid release. So if I don't do this beta, I'll probably do the next one.
Yeah, next one. But it's getting close because usually September is right around the time Apple's going to announce all the new iPhones. Believe me, in Touch with iOS, we'll be talking all about the new version, and I'm going to be getting more in depth as it comes out. Because, like I said, it's beta. We want to save it for when everybody has it, because only so many certain people have it, and it's not many of those common listeners out there that are brave enough to dive into the beta world. And then I've always said, if you don't want to have problems with your device, do not install beta. Plain and simple.
Yeah. It's not for the faint of heart.
Yeah.
For sure. Even on the good years,
For sure. All right. So a couple devices I wanted to mention as discussion. The first one, I don't know if you knew about this. Apple released a new version of its USB-C digital AV multi-port dongle, and it now has 60 hertz, 4K HDR, and more. It now allows you to be able to. This, of course, the reason I mentioned this is a dongle that can be used with the iPad Pro. It's a new model of adapter, which is A2119, whereas the old one is A1621. I just got it actually today. I ordered one, of course, I'm trying to look at the adapter to see how you're gonna tell the difference between the two, because they look exactly the same. And then the print that's on the adapter is so faint you could like barely hear it. I had to see it. I had to put a magnifying glass on here as well.
Yeah.
But it's going to have support of HDMI 2.0, which is the newest standard for HDMI. I don't know how important is this to you as far as hooking up to displays, things like that.
I don't do a lot with 4K yet. I know a few people who do, but it's mostly for their in-house living room, home theater setup. But I know there's road warriors, professional presenters, who are using high-res, large screens. I bet this is going to be a big help, but I don't know if it's going to be that big of a deal to the common consumer. Right. I really do I have probably the old version of this in the Lightning version for my old iPad and current iPhone. Because one little trick I do anytime we travel, I throw a bunch of movies and TV shows on there, and this is nothing really new, but I'm one of those people. So I do absolutely have and make use of an adapter like this, but I'm probably not going to rush out and get this version. Because I don't travel really anywhere. I don't think any hotel we visit is going to have a 4K TV anytime soon.
Right. So in the description here, I linked to the 9 to 5 Mac as a description of this. Only way you're going to be able to get 60 hertz 4K video on your iOS device is you got to have a 12.4 or later, of course, and it also runs on the Mac. Macs, it's going to be 2017 and later, so it's only going to be last 2 years of models for Macs. So that's what's so cool about this adapter. It goes both ways with an iPad Pro as well as a Mac. So you have one adapter for both. So I've always been pleased that they did that when they set that up. So check it out. If it's something, if you haven't bought one of these yet and we're in the market to get one, well, now you can make sure you have the latest and greatest. $69 through Apple. I'm sure Amazon will sell it for a little cheaper, but you can never have enough dongles, right?
We do live the dongle life now.
Yeah, and then also today, I was fortunate enough at during some pre-MacStack events that we visited OWC, which is Other World Computing, based out in Woodstock, Illinois, and they're one of the big Apple vendors that sells all kinds of great stuff. They released today their new palm-sized 5-port USB-C travel dock, which can be used for the Mac, the PC, and the iPad because it has a USB-C connector, and it's got all these plugs on here. And the other thing that it's got, which is really cool, is now the cord can now be wrapped to the bottom of the device. Because I have the old version. See, David, you're finding out I'm crazy. I buy all these adapters. I'm a bag full of dongles and adapters. I just keep buying things and crazy. What they added to this new one is, like I said, it's built-in cable storage now. And it does now have 100-watt pass-through power, faster charging for your notebook and devices. So now when you plug this thing in, it's going to charge. So same thing with your iPad. So you have that availability. It's got a USB 3.1 Type A. It's got USB-C. It's got HDMI. It's got an SD card reader. And that's the other cool thing. If you want to have this, if you don't have one of those readers, this is all in one for you for your iPad. So check this thing out. It's pretty awesome. They were talking it up, but they didn't have one yet I could touch and feel. So of course now I'm going to touch and feel it. Any of these types of devices that would interest you?
Now that we're talking about it in terms of some of the accessories I do have a smaller version kind of like this from Hypershop.
Sure.
Company that makes a few similar things. They focus on like portable batteries and stuff, but it's a really thin USB-C adapter, and it's got a few of these ports for like an SD card and USB and stuff. It definitely will not push that much power.
Yeah,
and it's small. Like, what it won't make up for in power, it definitely makes up in size. But these things are awesome, especially if you're traveling and you need this kind of connectivity, especially with Apple's laptops, because all you have is USB-C now, and maybe you don't want to replace some of your old devices, or maybe you don't want to live the dongle life like we are.
Yeah.
And I can't blame you. So these things are fantastic. OWC is an amazing company. They've been around for forever.
I actually
got to. Have you ever been to their facilities? Because I think they do tours.
We did the tour. Yeah, I'm sorry. I wish you would have been there.
Yeah,
you would have had a ball. Yeah, it's an absolutely awesome. If you hadn't already been there. Yeah.
So back when I worked at Macworld, and Jason Snell was my managing editor, editor in chief, he came out to do a tour, and he said, "Hey, you're in the area. Why don't we drive out together?" So I got to do a tour. I got to tour the facility with him.
That'd be awesome.
And this was closer to right after they had finished a lot of the awesome stuff that they have on premises, like the windmill and the parking that like drains water, and all the amazing like geothermal energy stuff that they do. Mm-hmm. Amazing company, fantastic stuff. Definitely recommended.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's a great place, and that's what inspired me to buy it, because I want to support them too, but of course I have to have the gadgets. So check that out. We have that link in the show notes. And you might want to pick one up for your iPad, but it does work with your Mac too. And then speaking of OWC, I found this amazing visual guide to screen gestures that they have, because they do this great blog called Rocket Yard, and they came up with this. Again, this will be in the show notes. This visual guide of gestures for the home screen on the iPhone and the iPad Pro, the iPhone 10 series and the iPad Pro. And they laid it out from A to I here as far as the screen here. I don't know if you had a chance to look at this yet, David, but this is pretty awesome. And to really get a good visual, I might even use this for some of my training that I do. So just to show people how you can do the gestures. So even when you get to the control center, it shows you where to go to the control center, the notification center. You can quickly access it by dragging down towards the middle, the top of the screen. Get to the widgets by going over it from the left to the right with this with that, and then the next screen you got the same thing with the going from right to left, and then scrolling recently opened apps, search and Siri suggestions, all with gestures. And I think this is such an amazing view guide. I was really super impressed with this.
It is. It's an impressive guide. I've never seen these instructions laid out quite this simply. and succinctly. So definitely check out the guide. I highly recommend it because if you can make muscle memory out of
absolutely
these, I really like the way iOS feels now in iOS 11 and 12 with the full screen iPhone 10 and 10s design. It's just such a great experience, and I feel like, not to get too far off the rails, but I was at the keynote when Steve Jobs introduced the original iPhone, and he talked a lot about like a touch screen device. You know, you can move these things with your fingers. You're touching the software, and I feel like iOS is in probably the best condition it's ever been in for that vision. Not to get a little too talking into the clouds here, but like you can swipe everything, like you've been saying. You can just swipe to pull up this panel or move to another page, and it's so great if you can commit this to muscle memory. It works really well.
Yeah, this definitely worth a link and keeping it in your bookmarks. They even go over gestures for app screens too, so it'll give you the same A to H and the guides to that too. So check it out, and that's and people understand that's kind of a tip for us, and as we led into the tips here for this week. And I was intrigued enough that I picked some of the tips that you have on your great newsletter on Finer Things in Tech, and I figured the first one here I think was yours. Nope, the first one wasn't yours. So we'll get to that. So the first one is we've got some tips here. Oh yeah, actually, I'm sorry. Yes, it was. Quickly switch between two types of apps on your Apple Watch. That was in. That was in your newsletter. If you can remember it, it was as of Series 3 and especially Series 4, you can now do a much better job of task switching. Did you want to talk about that real quick?
Yeah, it's really nice, especially on Series 4. I can't speak to Series 3 because I didn't own one, but I remember in the early days of the watch, there were complaints about app performance. They took a while to start up. They could be a little bit slow. And I feel like the Series 4 is in a great spot. I use a whole bunch of apps on my watch now. I switch between them. Yep. It really is like a wrist computer at this point. And it's, I have a shopping list with AnyList. I use Bear to record stuff. Disclaimer, I also work with them. They're one of my clients. I use Strava for workouts. I use Carrot Weather. Like I switch between a bunch of these apps now, and they open quickly. They're really snappy. It's just great. So if you haven't used them in a while, if you have a Series 4 but haven't really tried the apps, I definitely recommend it. And the main tip is that if you go to the app screen, the little app like bubble, and you open an app, you go back out and then you open another one, you can double click the crown and you can switch between them, kind of like Command Tab on a Mac, or swiping back and forth on an iPhone or an iPad now. And it's a great way, like you said, to multitask on your watch, which is not something I thought I'd be saying this early. Yeah, wow, and I can't wait till watchOS 6 with having its own app store, and this is gonna be its way of separating itself from the iPhone. So yeah, there's gonna be it's kind of its iPhone iTunes moment when Apple cut that cable. Yeah, but remember when you needed? Remember the dark days when you needed iTunes to set up your iPhone? I know. I can never forget those. But that's why we have iMazing now, because iMazing is a great app that you can do, and have to if you need to do backups, don't even have to have iTunes. Use that app. I've mentioned that many times. But yeah, great tip on that. The second tip I had was how to turn off auto capitalization words on your iPhone and iPad. You know how much of a pain that is sometimes, where the iPhone and iPad are all defaulted to having set it to automatically capitalize a new word at typing the end of each sentence. But you can turn that off if you so choose. And the way to do that is if you open the Settings app in iOS, and then you go to the General, and then you go to Keyboards. Then you're going to find one selection in there that says Auto Capitalization. You just tick the toggle button and turn that off. And then you just exit out of the settings, and now it will no longer auto capitalize if it drives you crazy. Sometimes, like it does me. But sometimes people like it. I think the auto correction is starting to get a little more annoying than it has lately. You type one word and then it types an entire sentence for you. If nothing makes sense of what you're trying to type. So, but hey.
more power to them that they're trying to make it easier to get things corrected. So, so that was that tip. And then I have another one. This was how to edit your photos geotag in the iPhone, or you can do it on your Mac as well. On the iPhone, it can be a little more challenging. There are some third-party apps that out there. There's a paid app. A couple of them that are suggested is Metapho and the Photo Investigator. Interesting. And both those apps can go in there, and what it's talking about is the metadata, being able to go in and actually change the location, the information, the EXIF file of a photo. If you want to be able to do that, there's going to be a link in the show notes with this to an article on from iPhone Life magazine that has these tips here, and I'll also add another tip for another app that I can't remember off the top of my head here, but you also can use to change it. I believe I've talked about it before, but yeah, this is a good way to being able to edit your photos if you want your photos geotagging. If it is, because sometimes it's not correct or you want it to be something different. So.
I can offer a little extra tip on that. I own and use Metapho, one of the iOS apps that they recommend.
Sure.
Metapho is great, and it's basically a metadata viewer and editor because photos on iOS, a lot of that metadata stuff is one of the things Apple kind of took out, in order to get these apps to fit on mobile. Mm-hmm. I'd like to see those features there, but until they are, I think Metapho is a great option. Mm-hmm. It can also do stuff like it can batch edit photos. I believe it can batch edit the geotags. You can also change a photo's timestamp. I don't know about other people.
That's been
one of the original reasons one of the first reasons I looked into Metapho was because I scanned in a whole bunch of old family photos. Right. And you know me, I like to work on iOS when I can. So I wanted to find something that would help me mess with that stuff. And I didn't want to step up to something like Adobe Lightroom. Sure. That's a little more firepower than I really need. And Metapho was a nice in between for me.
It's only $3.99, so that's not too terribly expensive.
Oh, yeah.
I think you've already got me to purchase it right now, Miz. I'm buying it. Well, actually, it looks. Oh, okay. And the other app is EXIF. EXIF Viewer is one I have too, which is really good. Yeah, Metapho. I think it's in-app purchases, so you can buy it and try it before you pay for it, and then you can pay for it's got in-app purchase, which is unlock everything for $4. You can't beat it. Mm-hmm. Can't beat it. So we'll put all the links in the show notes to those apps to make changes to your photos. So another tip we've got here is how to enable USB restricted mode to protect the data on your iPhone. You ever notice that whenever you plug in a public place, like let's say you're plugging into a device to charge something like that, you actually can set your phone so it doesn't have it has USB protected mode. So the way you do that is if you go into settings and then you go under Touch ID and passcode, or if it's a 10 or later, it's the Face ID and passcode. Then of course you put your password in. Then you scroll down and then there's a choice at the bottom there, USB accessories. You can turn that on or off, and you can turn it off if you don't want USB accessories to plug in and protect it from doing that. So to regain access, all you have to do is unlock your iPhone and go back in there and turn it on. I would hope they would come up with something different, wouldn't you think? I mean, I know iOS 13.
Yeah, I'd like to have a little bit more control over this, because I think an important detail of how this feature works is that it locks the Lightning port and it prevents USB accessories from getting any data from your phone after it's been locked for an hour.
Yep.
So you can't let's say you've been using your phone on the way to the coffee shop, and you're on your phone, you walk in, you order a coffee, you sit down. You can't just lock your phone. Right. You can't just turn this feature on, lock your phone, plug in, and feel safe. There's like a specific condition here, and I wonder why that, after an hour clause is there. But it is nice to have some of this control. I don't know if there's more in iOS 13. I'd certainly love it, especially with how much emphasis Apple's putting on security and privacy. Right. So we'll have to see about that.
All right. And then the last two tips I have are both from your newsletters and or your website. Ooh. So this first one I'm going to let you drive with. It's the long tapping of iOS screenshot preview to immediately share it. Go ahead and tell our listeners about all that, because I love screenshots.
Yeah, I really like this change Apple did. I think it came in iOS 12, I want to say, maybe iOS 11. But, when you take a screenshot on an iPhone or an iPad, you get a little thumbnail down in the lower right, I believe.
Right.
And, usually it just sits there for a couple seconds and then it disappears. You can swipe it away if you immediately want to save it to Photos. But if you long press on it right away, you can the share sheet pops up right then and there.
Right.
So you don't have to open an app. You don't have to stop what you're doing, go to Photos or anything. The share sheet pops up, and all the typical apps that you can share stuff to, everything you've installed and enabled are right there. So you can just share the photo real quick.
Right.
And I wrote this a little while ago. I want to see if I
this was back in February. I really tested you. This was back in February. So
Yeah. So I want to actually go a step further. I've got an extra tip after this process. So after you share the photo, the thumbnail is still there. If you tap that thumbnail, it opens this sort of like temporary markup screen where you can scribble on the photo, you can crop it, you can do a few things to it. If you tap done, you can delete the screenshot right then and there.
Right.
So now you're not filling Photos up with all these, tens, hundreds of screenshots that you don't actually want laying around. Yeah. You can share it, do whatever you need to do with it, and then you can delete it right then and there without having to, go into Photos and clean up stuff later.
Awesome. Yep. No, take advantage and read this article he wrote up as a tip. It's really awesome, and screenshots are the best. I really like screenshots a lot. So, and the last one I had was another tip from you. It was about the messages, was it not?
Yes. So this one is
quickly saving multiple photos and videos from messages conversations.
Yeah, so this is a panel that I feel like probably not enough people know about. But in your messages conversations, if you go into any conversation, you tap the person at the top, you tap the info button, and then you get like send them my current location, mute this conversation. Right. If you scroll down a little bit, you basically have a history of all the media that you've shared between yourself and them, everything they've sent you, everything you've sent them. And so if you want to, let's say you want to save a few of those photos to your photos, or maybe you want to share them to someone else, you can select multiple. You can select more than one if you tap and hold on one of them, and then the typical like copy delete menu pops up. If you tap more, now you can select a whole bunch of them, just like pressing the select button in Photos. You can just scroll and tap on whatever photos you want, and then from there you can say save. It calls them attachments for me right now, but there will be a button to save X number of whatever you've selected. So it's a great way to get that stuff out of messages if you need it.
Absolutely. All right, and then we wrap things up, and then I have a couple app picks. One I have is I actually found interesting. I just found out about this app today. Actually, it's called Google Primer, and what it is, it allows you to be able to learn a lot of marketing things fast, and it's an easy way to learn new business and digital marketing skills. It works offline, so you can take lessons on business planning, management, sales, digital advertising, social media. This might be right up your alley, actually, David. Content marketing, SEO, and all kinds of other stuff. If you have 5 minutes free, all you have to do is you go to this app, and it actually goes through. And I started taking the one on social media, and it just flips through pages, and it's really visually really a cool app. I was very surprised, of course, of anything from Google, but I would check this out. It's absolutely free for learning skills from marketing and business management and selling and brand building and all kinds of different stuff with business. It might be something you might be interested in. It's got a lot of good ratings on the App Store, so I've got a link in the show notes to that particular app on the App Store's app. So I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but if you don't have an app, that's okay too. But have something you came up with.
Asking me for app recommendations is absolutely not putting me on the spot.
All right, good.
I can always recommend an app for you. So one, I don't know if this is a little off the beaten path for you or your audience, but let's try it. How do you ever talk about Reddit? How familiar are
you?
Yeah,
that's
how
great.
familiar do you think your audience is?
Go for it. Yeah, that's great.
So Reddit is, just like the internet or the television, Reddit can be a wonderful place, and some parts of it can be a terrible place. But there are lots and lots of wonderful places on Reddit, I feel. And some of them are, the whole concept, just to make sure everyone's on the same page, is Reddit is a community of communities. So if you're into looking for cute cat pictures, there are absolutely a few what they call subreddits for them. Subreddits are like forums. Right. If you're into working on cars, if you're into Apple stuff, there's going to be a subreddit for it. And if there isn't, you can create one. Well, Reddit also supports third-party apps. And one of my favorite apps for browsing Reddit, my favorite app really is called Apollo. In fact, it's the only way I really use Reddit. Reddit has a website. I've never liked it. Their new design is a lot better, but I never used Reddit until I found some of these third-party apps that actually make it look better and usable for what I want it to do. And one of my favorite things about a community like that versus following people on Twitter, even somebody like me on Twitter or your favorite news people or whatever, is subreddits are very moderated to stay on topic. So if you like the cute dog pictures subreddit like I do, you can go there and you absolutely know that that's all you're going to see there. You're not going to see someone ranting about the world being flat, or like you'll see your favorite news writer getting into a Twitter fight with somebody or whatever.
Yep. All
you're going to see there is cute dog pictures, and I appreciate that in our modern times. Sure. And so I've been using Reddit more, actually. And you can do a lot with it. You can do all sorts of cool stuff. You can create something called multi-Reddits, where you collect a whole bunch of subreddits into a stream, kind of like you'd put news feeds into a folder, in an RSS reader. So I have like a games multi-Reddit because I play a lot of video games. And so I can learn about certain video games and systems and stuff like that. So Apollo is a great app. It's on the iPhone and the iPad.
Yep. The link in the show notes for it. And it looks like it's free, but there's also in-app purchases.
Yep. As so many apps are these days. So yeah, you can download it and try it, and then you can get a few extra features. It's made by one individual developer. I'm so bad with names, so I don't have it off the top of my head. Christian Selleck, there you go.
Yeah, I've already got the link.
Perceptive of you. And he's very responsive. Of course, he has his own subreddit for Apollo. He's super responsive. People, post bugs. They post requests. He's in there all the time talking to people. Just a real great developer, great app. Highly recommend it.
I've been meaning to really get into Reddit. I'm not into it as much as I used to be. And there's so much information out there that you can find out that's out there. Do you subscribe to it, or you use just the free version?
I subscribe to it. I like the extra features. I like some of the themes and icons. You get a little more customization. One of the really neat things that I like that he does is he has an update at least once a month, and each month for the pro subscribers, he introduces a new icon that is commissioned by like an independent artist in the community. And so he's just got this huge body of, how many has he done now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 10? I think 10 icons now. And, just great little renditions of the Reddit icon. It's a little robot, it's their mascot that people kind of get attached to. And so, real interactive, constant updates, totally worth the price. And if you ever need a session about Reddit, man, I could totally sit down and chat with you. You could do a show about it.
Yeah, we could do a show about it.
I should probably talk to Mike and Barry about maybe doing a talk about it.
Yeah, we could do that.
Now that we're getting down this rabbit hole.
Yeah. No, I'm always open to do a different open show. I mean, it's it's all involving iOS, so it's not like it's anything different. So we can always come up with something later. They have a lifetime Ultra. Is there a difference between Ultra and Pro?
So I forget what the difference is between Ultra and Pro.
I mean, $25. And it's lifetime. I mean, I think that's pretty fair.
Oh, the lifetime. Yeah, I think the other ones are like yearly, and I think they introduced... I've seen more apps doing this, actually, introducing some type of a lifetime purchase price, because, of course, there's some people out there that, they don't want to subscribe, they don't want to pay multiple times.
Right.
That's a totally different conversation. So I hope I hope that works out because I've been seeing more apps introduce that recently.
So it looks like he's updating it pretty frequently. So that's definitely potential topic for you never know. We could talk about that in the future here on our show. I also linked under your app picks the actual Reddit, the official Reddit app, so people can check that out as well if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to put in here that you highly recommend the Apollo Reddit app. So, all right,
awesome.
All right, I really appreciate you coming on the show this week, and we had a lot of fun. Why don't you tell the listeners how they can get in touch with you and social media, all that stuff?
So I'm around on a few sites. I do have a Twitter. It's my last name @Chartier. Mm-hmm. I spend a little more time on a different network called Mastodon these days.
Yeah.
And it's probably easiest to find me at my website. So it's just chartier.land. And I've got everything linked there. I've got my, Finer Things in Tech and the newsletter are linked there. So that's like a nice little touch point if you want to find anything else that I do.
All right. I did put a link in under about our guests at your Toot.cafe, the Mastodon link as well, if that's okay.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. We'll have that in the notes as well. All right, let's wrap things up. And that is a wrap for this week. Please send your comments, questions, and suggestions to our email address, feedback@intouchwithios.com. You can follow us on Twitter @intouchwithios, or you can subscribe in your favorite podcatcher, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, and TuneIn Radio. Or better yet, go to our website at intouchwithios.com, where you can find all the links to listen to us on there. I am Dave Ginsburg, and you can find me on Twitter @DaveG65. And again, David, thanks for joining me.
Thanks a lot. This was great.
Yeah, this was great. And thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you again soon.